All right, so we're not gonna do a fancy introduction. You know what this is. This is a review of the Rising of the Shield Hero, Volume 10. So let's get into the main points of the story. Essentially, the gang is back in Melromark. They release the spirit turtle energy that they got back from Kyo, and that basically puts the next wave out to be about 3.5 months away, which is good for them because they're still suffering from the effects of the curse that they received in the last volume. And with that, Malfumi returns back to the castle, receives the title of Count, and essentially asks for the territory that Raftalia grew up on as sort of like a reward in lieu of money because uh, basically the entire country is still reeling from the effects of what the spirit turtle did in its rampage. In addition, Fumi finds out that Trash is actually the staff hero, one of the 7-star heroes from the world, which makes him, as of now, the only 7-star hero to be revealed. From there, Naofumi goes in to buy some slaves from the slave trader, and he doesn't find any from the village that he's looking for because he's trying to repopulate the village. But he does find a few mole people, and they're supposed to be very good with their hands. So he sees that as an asset. In addition, he's given a bunch of spirit turtle materials to absorb into his shield, and he unlocks the E float shield, which allows him to basically create a shield that floats around with the command of his mind. So, he takes a bunch of his slaves back. I think there's 6 in total that he got from that trip, as well as a multitude of monster eggs. And what he's trying to do is reestablish the village that was there so that one, Raftalia actually has a home when everything's over and he makes his trip back to Japan. And 2, he wants to reestablish this kind of a reliable fighting force so that, he's not doing everything on his own. So this starts a series of events where basically the slaves go out and they are leveling, while Naofumi is basically just cooking all of the meals that feed all of these slaves, and all these slaves are children. So obviously they're gonna grow and eat, and it's just a mess. We also find out that the little boy Keel is actually a girl, but the sort of psychology about it is that essentially she just wants to be strong like her dad. She looked up to her dad in a sort of way. So I guess it was touching. It was, and then to try and get money for building up the village. Now Fumi tries to get his new slaves to peddle the medicines that he makes, but along the way he ends up going to this is a tough one to pronounce, so forgive me. Zeltabol. It's a country that's run basically amongst merchants, and its economy is a mercantilism. But the point is that there's supposedly a lot of the slaves that he's interested in because they were slaves from the village prior to the waves. So they were just random villagers that got sold off. So he's trying to get them back to repopulate the village as sort of like a restoration kind of dealio. So because they're coming from this certain village, and because Raftali is so strong, and there's so many legends about her, that has essentially boosted the market for these slaves, because that's essentially how mercantilism works. But the point is that they don't have the money to buy basically any of the slaves. They're going for like crazy, ridiculous kinds of wages. So Naofumi is basically forced to enter this group fighting tournament in the country's coliseum to win the 150 gold piece prize. Now, they want to keep a low profile while they're in the tournament, but that kind of goes out the window after the first few fights. But regardless, they still wear masks and they use code names because they don't want to give away the whole, shield hero thing, which would kind of go against the whole betting thing that they're doing to try and raise funds. But the first few fights, they're fairly easy for them because, they're powerful even with the whole effects of the curse thing going on. Philo ends up using this morning star that she just ends up calling Jingle Jangle, using it like a little toy. And it shoots fireballs everywhere. It's actually kind of funny. But yeah, from there, it really just continues with the arc of how they're progressing through the tournament. And we find this specific fighter, a code name Nadia. And essentially, she tries to warn Naofumi about attacks coming from outside the Colosseum that are supposed to basically stop fights before they happen. As a way, it's almost like cheating. It's essentially cheating. And even then, she tries to essentially poison him with the fruit that make all those alcohol, like you may have seen in the anime. But it doesn't work for him, obviously, because he doesn't get drunk. So that was interesting, and it sets up plot points that I'm just going to let you read because they're actually kind of funny. And then essentially they go through the tournament, they're doing fine, they're not really struggling, but then they end up having to fight Nadia in the semis. And even though this is like a group tournament, she's fighting solo, so she's very strong. A lot of her attacks focus mainly on her use of lightning magic. She's actually fairly adept at lightning magic. In addition, she uses her harpoon as sort of like a combo harpoon lightning magic. It's very effective. And when they start summoning water into the I guess you call it the arena, is devastating, to say the least. But then we get the revelation that Nadia is in fact a demi-human who is like a killer whale. And she's actually a villager from the village, named Sedina. And essentially, she was doing all of this fighting to collect funds so that she could help free the villagers. And essentially, they make a deal with Naofumi and to pay off the debts that she'd been occurring to get all these slaves. And basically, her plan in the beginning was to basically get up to the finals, then throw the match, and everything would be square. But she decides to throw the match in the semis. Well, this doesn't go over so well. So they're forced, Naofumi and the gang, as well as Nadia, to fight in an exhibition match against this killer clown known as Murder Perot. Or Murder Perot, it's French. And essentially, this murderous clown uses string-based attacks, and she's fairly strong. Like, Nadia was given, she was giving the group a hard time in their fight, but Killer Clown here was putting in the work. But after that, eventually the fights whittle down and Clown escapes, and that kind of throws everything off. So basically from there, Naofumi easily wins the championship. He gets the funds. He pays off the debt. He returns the villagers back to the village, and everything's all square. And that's basically where the volume ends off. So, highlight characters for this volume, I'd say Sedina, aka Nadia. She's pretty strong, especially on the water. Using lightning-based attacks. That's not something you've really seen too much of in the story, so that's fairly interesting, especially with the revelation that she is part killer whale. That's obviously pretty cool. And then obviously Murder Perot. Don't know too much about them as of late, but you could probably see that this is going somewhere, given that they just kind of vanished after the arena things. They'll probably pop up in the future to some extent. I'm not exactly sure how much, but it's safe to assume. In addition, the predictions, that would be one of them. Murder Pro is going to come back, but other than that, my biggest prediction going forward is that it's going to be a lot more of gathering slaves and villagers to the extent that they can, so that they can build a strong army to fight the rest of the waves. But other than that, it's not super clear what's gonna happen next. And yeah, bar throwing out some spoiler stuff from the web novel, you're not gonna. Something obviously has to happen to kick it into high gear, but that it will occur in the next volume. So leave your comments and your hopes and desires in the comment section below.